Xena's rise to fame had been gradual but steady. From posting relatable memes and beauty tutorials to documenting her life in the vibrant streets of Lagos, she had become the voice of a generation. Her followers adored her for her authenticity, her sharp wit, and her unapologetic take on societal issues. But deep down, Xena knew she was just another young woman hustling to keep the lights on in her cramped apartment. That Friday night, as the city buzzed with life, Xena sat on her worn-out sofa, scrolling through her notifications. The rooftop party she'd attended earlier had been a success. Her latest photo, a perfectly timed shot of her laughing against the Lagos skyline, was racking up likes. She barely noticed the first message when it slid into her inbox. At 2:14 a.m. tomorrow, a red car will crash into the bridge near Echo Marina. 4 people will die. Post this. Xena blinked at the screen, unsure if this was some twisted prank. She checked the sender's profile, but it was blank. No name, no photo, no posts. With a shrug, she deleted the message and went back to her notifications. By morning, the message was the last thing on her mind until she saw the news. Horror at Echo Marina. Red car plunges into river, 4 dead. Her stomach churned as she read the article. The crash had happened at exactly 2:14 a.m., just as the message had predicted. Her hands trembled as she reread the details. It could have been a coincidence, she told herself. Lagos was chaotic. Accidents happened every day. But deep down, she felt it wasn't. For the next 2 days, Xena couldn't shake the unease that gripped her. She went through the motions of her day, editing videos, engaging with followers, and attending events. But her mind kept circling back to the message. Then, late on Tuesday night, another DM arrived. A fire will break out at Wazobia Market on Wednesday. Post this. Her heart pounded as she stared at the words. This time, she couldn't ignore it. She screenshot the message and posted it to her Instagram story, writing, "Someone sent me this. I don't know if it's a joke or something serious, but please be careful if you're going to Wazobia Market tomorrow. Better safe than sorry." The response was immediate. Her followers flooded her inbox with questions, theories, and warnings to be careful. Many dismissed it as a hoax, but some took it seriously, promising to avoid the market. By Wednesday afternoon, the fire broke out. The news spread like wildfire, and so did Xena's post. Her screenshot of the message, combined with the market fire, went viral. People called her a hero, a visionary, a protector of the city. She gained over 100,000 new followers in a single day. Media outlets reached out for interviews, and fans flooded her comments with gratitude and praise. But not everyone was convinced. Critics accused her of spreading fear, claiming the messages were fabricated for attention. Some even speculated that she was behind the incidents, orchestrating them for fame. As Xena grappled with the sudden surge of fame, the messages kept coming. Each one detailed a new tragedy, a collapsed building, a kidnapping, a freak storm. And each time the events unfolded exactly as predicted. Her warnings began to shape the city. People adjusted their plans based on her posts, avoiding areas she flagged as dangerous. The nickname the social media prophet took hold, and Xena found herself propelled into a role she hadn't asked for. But with fame came scrutiny. Journalists dug into her past, questioning her motives. The police started monitoring her, suspecting her involvement in the incidents. Xena felt like her life was spiraling out of control, even as her follower count soared. One night, as Xena prepared for bed, her phone buzzed with a new message. She opened it reluctantly, bracing herself for another grim prediction. But this one was different. "Stop sharing these messages. You're ruining the plan." Her breath hitched. Who was this person or entity sending the messages? Were they human? How did they know these things? For the first time, she responded. "Who are you? What plan?" The reply was instant. "The question isn't who I am, it's who you're becoming." The words sent a shiver down her spine. Before she could type another response, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email from an unfamiliar address. She opened it hesitantly and found an attachment. The photo showed her standing at her bedroom window the previous night. Her shadow was illuminated by the city lights, but in the background, barely visible in the shadows, was the outline of a figure. Zena's blood ran cold. She spun around, staring at the same window. The curtains were drawn, but she felt an overwhelming sense of being watched. Then the lights in her apartment flashed, plunging her into darkness. Her phone screen lit up with one final message. "You've been warned." Zena stood frozen in the darkness, her heart pounding as the glow of her phone illuminated the hunting message. The room felt colder than before, the kind of chill that sinks into the bones. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting toward the curtained window. Was someone out there? The silence was oppressive. She reached for her bedside lamp, but the switch clicked uselessly. No power. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed her phone and activated the flashlight. The narrow beam cut through the darkness, casting unsettling shadows across the room. "Get it together, Zena," she whispered to herself. Summoning her courage, she crept toward the window. The beam of her phone's light wavered as her hand shook. She pulled back the curtain in one swift motion and peered outside. The street below was empty, the usual Lagos hum muted by the late hour. No shadowy figure, no movement. She exhaled shakily, but her relief was short-lived. Her phone vibrated in her hand, a new message. "Looking won't help. I'm closer than you think." She stumbled back, her heart hammering in her chest. The phone slipped from her grasp and crashed to the floor. Zena's first instinct was to call someone. Anyone. She scrambled for her phone and dialed her best friend, Bassi. The phone rang endlessly before going to voicemail. She tried again, this time calling her brother, Kunle. He answered sluggishly. "Zena, do you know what time it is?" "Kunle," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think someone's watching me. They sent me a photo of myself and—" "Wait, slow down," Kunle interrupted. "Who sent you a photo? What's going on?" "I don't know. It's these messages. They've been predicting things, the accidents, the fire, everything, and now they're threatening me." Kunle's tone grew serious. "Zena, you need to report this to the police." "They already think I'm involved. You've seen the news? They think I'm making this up for attention." "Then come stay with me," Kunle said firmly. "You shouldn't be alone." Zena hesitated. The thought of leaving her apartment, the only place she felt even remotely safe, was terrifying. But staying here with the weight of those words hanging in the air felt worse. "I'll come," she said finally. Packing a small bag, Zena couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside made her jump. She moved quickly, throwing essentials into her bag before slinging it over her shoulder. The streets were hauntingly quiet as she stepped out of her building. Lagos never truly slept, but tonight the city felt abandoned. She flagged down a passing Okada rider, climbed onto the bike, and gave Kunle's address. The ride was uneventful at first, the cool night air brushing against her face. But as they approached a deserted stretch of road, the rider suddenly slowed down. "What's wrong?" Zena asked, her voice tight. The rider pointed ahead. "There's a car blocking the road." A sleek black sedan sat parked sideways, its hazard lights flashing. Zena's stomach churned. "Can we go around it?" she urged. The rider nodded and began to maneuver past the car. As they passed, Zena glanced at the driver's side window. It was down, but the interior was dark. She couldn't see anyone inside. Just as they cleared the car, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out hesitantly and read the message. "You should have stayed home." Her scream caught in her throat as the sedan's engine roared to life. The Okada rider sensed the danger and accelerated, weaving through the empty streets with the sedan close behind. Zena clung tightly to the rider, her heart racing as the car's headlights bore down on them. "Faster!" she yelled. "I'm trying!" the rider shouted back, panic in his voice. The sedan gained on them, its engine growling like a predator closing in on its prey. Zena's mind raced. Who were these people? What did they want from her? Suddenly, the sedan swerved, clipping the back wheel of the bike. The Okada skidded, and both Zena and the rider were thrown to the ground. She hit the pavement hard, her bag spilling its contents. The sedan screeched to a halt a few feet away. The driver's door opened, and a tall figure stepped out, their face obscured by the shadows. Zena scrambled to her feet, her body screaming in pain. She looked around desperately for help, but the street was empty. "Stay back!" she yelled, her voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. Instead, they reached into their pocket and pulled out a small device. It beeped once, and the streetlights around them flickered before going out completely. Zena was plunged into darkness again. As her eyes struggled to adjust, she heard the faint sound of footsteps approaching. Her breathing quickened, and she backed away, her hands fumbling for anything she could use as a weapon. Then, out of nowhere, a second set of footsteps echoed. "Let her go," a voice commanded. The figure froze. Zena turned toward the voice, but the darkness made it impossible to see who had spoken. "This isn't your concern," the figure said, their voice low and intimidating. The newcomer didn't reply. Instead, there was a loud crack, a sound like something heavy striking the ground. The figure let out a grunt of pain, and Zena heard their footsteps retreating. Moments later, the streetlights flickered back on. The sedan was gone, and the mysterious figure who had saved her stood a few feet away. It was a man, his face partially obscured by a hood. "Who are you?" Zena asked, her voice shaking. The man stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Someone who knows what you've gotten yourself into." Before she could ask more, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. Shaken and bruised, Zena finally made it to Kunle's apartment. But the night's events had left her with more questions than answers. Who were the people in the sedan? How did they know where she was? And who was the hooded man who had saved her? As she sat on Kunle's couch, staring at her phone, another message arrived. "You were warned. This is only the beginning." Zena's hands trembled as she read the words. Whatever was happening, it was far from over. Zena sat frozen on Kunle's couch, the glow of her phone's screen casting a haunting light on her face. The message, "This is only the beginning," hung over her like a dark cloud. Her brother paced the room, visibly agitated. "You can't stay here, Zena," Kunle said, his voice firm. "Whoever these people are, they know how to find you. You need to go somewhere safe." "Safe? Where's safe when they can track me anywhere?" Zena shot back. "Kunle, this isn't just about me anymore. Whoever is behind this, they're playing a bigger game." Kunle sighed, running a hand through his hair. "What do they want from you?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out," Zena muttered. She opened her phone again, scrolling through the cryptic messages she had received over the past few weeks. Each one had predicted a disaster, but none gave any clue about the sender's identity or motive. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Both siblings froze, exchanging wary glances. "Were you expecting anyone?" Zena whispered. Kunle shook his head. Slowly, he approached the door, peering through the peephole. He turned back to her, his face pale. "It's the guy from last night, the one who saved you." Kunle opened the door cautiously, revealing the hooded man who had saved Zena from the sedan. Up close, he looked younger than she had expected, with piercing eyes that seemed to see right through her. "We need to talk," he said, stepping into the room without waiting for an invitation. "Who are you?" Zena demanded. The man pulled down his hood. "My name is Jide. I used to work for the people who are after you." "What people?" Kunle interjected, his voice sharp. Jide glanced at him, then back at Zena. "A group called the Vanguard. They're a secretive organization that uses technology to manipulate events, accidents, disasters, even political outcomes. The messages you've been receiving? They're part of a larger operation to control public perception." Zena's heart raced. "Why me?" "I'm just a social media influencer. I didn't ask for any of this." Jide hesitated. You weren't chosen randomly. The Vanguard selects individuals with influence, people who can sway the masses. At first, they use you as a tool, but once you outlive your usefulness... His words trailed off, but the implication was clear. Kunle stepped forward, his fists clenched. So what? They're trying to kill her now? Jide nodded grimly. They see her as a liability. She's been exposing their plans, even if unintentionally. The Vanguard doesn't like loose ends. Xena sat down, her mind racing. If they're so powerful, how can I stop them? You can't do it alone, Jide said, but there's a way to turn their system against them. They rely on an advanced technology to predict outcomes and send out the messages. If we can hack into it, we can expose their operations to the world. Kunle frowned. Hack into it? You make it sound easy. It's not, Jide admitted. The machines are housed in a secure facility outside Lagos, but I know someone who can help us get in. Xena's fear gave way to determination. Let's do it. The next day, Xena, Kunle, and Jide met with a hacker named Ayo in a rundown cafe on the outskirts of the city. Ayo was a tech wizard, his laptop covered in stickers and his fingers moving faster than Xena could follow. Breaking into the Vanguard's system is like breaking into a fortress, Ayo explained. But every fortress has a weak spot. We just need to find it. For hours, they worked together, mapping out the facility and identifying potential vulnerabilities. Jide revealed that the system main server was located in a heavily guarded building, but there was a backdoor entry point through an old service tunnel. As they finalized their plan, Xena felt a mix of fear and resolve. This was her chance to fight back, to take control of her life again. Under the cover of night, the group made their way to the facility. Jide led the way, his movements swift and precise. The service tunnel was dark and damp, the air thick with tension. Ayo worked quickly, disabling the security cameras and unlocking the doors. They moved deeper into the building, their footsteps echoing oddly. When they reached the server room, Xena felt her heart pound in her chest. Ayo plugged his laptop into the system and began typing furiously. Hurry! Jide urged, his eyes scanning the room. I'm in, Ayo said after a tense moment. I'm uploading the data now. But before they could celebrate, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed and the sound of approaching footsteps filled the air. They know we're here, Jide shouted. Guards stormed into the room, guns drawn. Jide pulled out a concealed weapon, firing warning shots to keep them at bay. Kunle grabbed a metal rod, ready to defend his sister. Ayo worked frantically, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Just a few more seconds. Xena bent behind a desk, her heart racing as bullets sprang around them. She clutched her phone tightly, knowing this could be her last moment. Finally, Ayo shouted, Done! The data's online! Jide grabbed Xena's arm. We have to go now! The group fought their way out, narrowly escaping as the facility went into lockdown. By the time they reached safety, Xena's phone was buzzing with notifications. The data had been uploaded to every major news outlet, exposing the Vanguard's operations to the world. In the days that followed, Xena watched as the story unfolded. The Vanguard's leaders were arrested, their secrets laid bare. The messages stopped, and for the first time in weeks, Xena felt a sense of peace. But she knew her life would never be the same. Her followers hailed her as a hero, but Xena no longer cared about fame. She had faced the darkness and survived, and now she was ready to move forward. As she stood on her balcony watching the city lights twinkle, her phone buzzed with a new message. Her breath caught as she opened it. You've won this round, but the game isn't over. Xena stared at the message, a chill running down her spine. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. Let them come, she whispered.
But this is just the beginning. What happens next? Will Xena finally find peace, or is there another storm waiting in the shadows? Don't miss the next chapter of this gripping story. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for the next episode.